Well, thank you very much, Kitty. Pleasure to be here, and happy Friday afternoon, everyone. As Kitty said, I'm the Specialty Crops Market Analyst with World Agricultural, Economic, and Environmental Services. It's always a pleasure to speak about fruits and vegetables. That's what I do for a living. For this presentation, I'm going to use the term specialty crops to refer to this agricultural sector, basically since it has fewer syllables. The first part of my presentation will refresh our minds on some of the basics surrounding specialty markets. The last part will focus more on issues and the role of a few key pieces of federal information. So let's get started. First up, who uses specialty crop information generated by federal agencies? Well, the short answer is who doesn't? The most frequent contacts over my many years in ERS commodity work includes growers, marketers, consultants, university and extension, students, embassies, and input dealers. And here are some other frequent callers. Among them, one recurring example is investment firms and other financial organizations. These firms routinely requested basic market trend information with a focus on prices and consumption trends. When growers, processors, and firms like those in the greenhouse business request a business loan, that is when the bank's market research department goes into action, requesting federal data and reports to analyze market trends and assess investor risk. And of course, we can't forget the many commodity boards and groups who fly the flag of hundreds of individual crops that collectively encompass the specialty crops sector. Most of these dedicated groups make use of federal statistics and analysis to show how their commodity or group of commodities is faring in the market. Assessments such as these are especially important to promotional groups whose main mission is to boost consumption. The specialty checkoff programs overseen by AMS must undergo periodic program effectiveness reviews. The outside reviewers rely heavily on federal statistics to help estimate their promotion review models. So, what specialty crop information is out there? Well, most of you know these key sources, especially if you've read Kitty's Choices article on federal statistics for applied economists. Most of the major federal data series for specialty crops originate from NASS, AMS, BLS, and Customs, with analytical reports largely coming out of ERS, AMS, and FAS. NASS reports form the core of the specialty crops data offerings. Plus, NASA's census work provides important fruit and vegetable market structure data and area benchmarks for many crops not covered by the annual NASS statistics, including data on the protected structure industry. AMS, the Agricultural Marketing Service, is also a key information source. Market news data helps level the playing field, so small firms have access to much of the same information as large firms. Market news price data can also serve as a reference point, lessening some of the uncertainty and volatility in an inherently volatile fresh produce market. The Department of Labor, through their Bureau of Labor Statistics, provides retail prices and consumer and producer price indexes for a number of commodities and commodity groupings. BLS's retail price coverage has slowly eroded over time, which limited or ended price spread analysis for crops like onions and peppers. This is one reason the Market News advertised retail price effort is welcome and important. The U.S. Census Bureau and U.S. Customs and Border Protection provides international trade data for specialty crops. Imports have made significant inroads into many specialty crop markets for a number of reasons, good and not so good. Combining trade data with domestic information can help determine whether imports are relatively benign or if an industry needs to take competitive action. Among the many other vital things done at this agency, USDA's Foreign Agricultural Service releases increasingly scarce but very useful global agriculture information network reports from various countries. And USDA's Economic Research Service brings all the above sources together into Outlook reports and topical research documents. The Market Outlook reports provide an important starting point for those doing market research, helping to steer their own analysis. So when is federal specialty crops information needed? Well, of course, the short answer is all year long. However, there are times when having objective public data could almost be called indispensable. One such time is during the long-run corporate planning cycle. Since I've been in private consulting, I've done work for organizations engaged in multi-year planning processes. The goal was usually to determine what crops the firm would be focusing on and what future markets might look like. The questions that were being asked required heavy reliance on federal specialty crop time series data. So where is specialty crop information used? Well, from what I've observed, U.S. federal specialty crops information is used globally. It is used by firms that trade with the United States, and this includes those looking for business opportunities, trying to identify uptrending markets or underserved consumer market windows that can be filled from outside sources. It also includes those who are looking to import specialty crops from the U.S. at the best possible time and price. While many specialty crop markets are relatively small on a national scale, particularly in terms of acreage, most return a pretty high value per acre and often play a significant economic role in the areas where they are located, whether that's in California or Delaware. The persistence and growth of the local foods movement and the extent of farming on the urban fringe further emphasizes the pervasive nature of specialty crops, as well as their growing local economic impact. So why is federal specialty crop information needed? Well, federal information describing specialty crop markets is important for several reasons. It informs markets while helping to level the playing field by providing the same objective information to all interested market participants. It enables basic supply and demand analysis and aids market participants in the price discovery process. It helps diversified growers determine their crop mix for the upcoming season. It aids in long-run business planning. It helps to inform new business startups. And it facilitates the analysis of market structure and performance to help inform policymakers who are crafting farm, food, trade, and rural legislation. So given those 5 W's, as you might call them, how else does the federal data that's out there support the specialty crop markets? Well, my former employer, USDA's Economic Research Service, is both a major user and an important contributor of specialty crops data and information. At ERS, analysts repackage and manipulate basic market data for research and Outlook reports, which are used globally. In terms of statistics, ERS puts out farm cash receipts for specialty crops and other farm finance data. However, one of the most popular stats generated by ERS for specialty crops is per capita disappearance, also known as per capita food availability. That's an essential proxy for per capita consumption. This lengthy time series that goes back to 1909 is what I consider a key indicator of overall market performance. When viewed over time, per caps can give the user clues as to whether a commodity market is enjoying consumers' support or is mature and possibly on a downslide. So given today's budget realities, what would a reduction in federal specialty crops information, such as that first announced during the sequester, mean to the U.S.? Well, thankfully, NASA's restored some key reports initially targeted for suspension. But when NASA initially announced the suspension of many vegetable and non-citrus fruit publications last year, I immediately feared the loss of the 2 annual summaries on that list, the non-citrus annual summary and the vegetable annual summary. Why? Well, if these 2 reports had not been restored, first, ERS would have lost their source for about $20 billion of crop cash receipts, essential to the farm income cash receipts estimate. The crop value estimate in these NAS reports forms a large chunk of annual specialty crops cash receipts. Second, FAS and ERS would have had a hard time estimating the impact of trade on domestic specialty crop markets, the production data used as a divisor in the share calculations. Third, without the annual production estimates contained in those NASS publications, USDA would have been in a real bind regarding the continued legitimate calculation of per capita food disappearance. Further, the loss of disappearance data for fruit and vegetables would in turn impact the role of USDA's Center for Nutrition Policy and Promotion, which needs adjusted disappearance data to calculate the caloric and nutrient intake of U.S. consumers. And for those attempting to monitor, influence, or improve consumer eating habits and the well-being of U.S. population, that would be a major information loss. On a final note, a problem with continually austere budgets for data organizations is that they tend to lose focus on the end game, collecting data that not only fairly presents markets, but also keeps up with changes in those markets. As we have seen recently, austerity can mean reduced data availability and hobble any hopes for expanded survey coverage. For example, the vegetable industry today is much different than it was 15 years ago, but NASS data collection is little changed, ignoring the reductions we just saw. Greenhouse tomatoes account for half of retail tomato sales, and small tomato volume, grape and cherry, has grown rapidly, but both are absent from the NASS annual survey program. Similar observations can be made for sweet pepper and cucumber markets. The local foods movement also presents a substantial challenge to data organizations, how, or even if, to cover expanding small-scale output from widely dispersed areas. Well, in summary, although the specialty crops information system faces serious budget challenges, it has a long history, serves many actors inside and outside the industry, and if lost, would be very difficult to replace. Thank you very much, and this concludes my presentation.